Hi, Lois. So, we've just announced and opened for this 21-day course through her mystery school. I decided to take a few of the practices out of the 9-month core curriculum and create a 21-day. I thought of it as like an empowerment reset. And I pulled 3 core principles of deep feminine power cultivation out to focus on during those 21 days. They are discernment, magnetism, and self-authority. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you today, and also why I chose those practices for what I would call core deep feminine empowerment, is that underneath of all 3 of them is consolidation of power. So I wanted to have a moment with you to talk about what it could possibly be like to not let this life use you up. To not let this life use you up. There is an epidemic of depletion, anxiety, and even when things are good, a lot of times a sense of too much, a sense of I'm not actually present with what's happening, and an underlying depletion in a lot of women, an underlying sadness, overwhelm, sometimes disorientation. And what I've come to believe is that a lot of this comes from the fact that we are alienated from, we haven't really taken on the practice or the life skill of consolidation. And what that means is that we are generative and actually miraculous by our nature. The female being, just by her nature, has capacities for regeneration, for resource, for gathering energy, for creating, for so much. And there are 2 levels that are going on. On one level, female sexual power, generative power, female energy has been not only demonized, but usually commodified. For thousands of years, we're dealing with a lot of an inheritance here of how female energy, how the woman, what she's capable of and what she gives, has been held as a resource to be mined, not as a treasure to be stewarded, as a resource to be mined until she's used up, rather than a garden to be tended so that she blooms forever, right? So that has been some of the over-cultural conditioning and distortion. And we've internalized some of that and a lot of that. And in general, what I would say is that we're at a point now where our greatest reclamation is going to have to happen from the inside. It's going to have to happen from our deep choosing that we will not let this life use us up, that we are not available for this, that we will not be conscripted, we will not be commodified, all these things, and not from a place of kind of angry, self-righteous, understandably upset reaction, but from a place of self-authority where there's a neutrality, there's just a reality. No, I'm not going to do that anymore. And in order to do that, we have to befriend and start to really practice the art of consolidation. So what has happened with the commodification and the overuse and the overextension of female energy in ourselves and in our culture is that we've become dispersed and spread too thin. And kind of, we're asking ourselves most of the time to be everything all at once and to be really good at it and to give until there's nothing left. The choice, the balancing aspect of that is consolidation, which means making choices to consolidate our energy, to keep what's alive in us here. I almost died a couple of years ago, and it was in huge part because I was so extremely overusing my own energy, my capacity, and it wasn't just my capacity. It's not just that we have the capacity and that our world has commodified it. It's also that we love to love. Like, we are here for this. We are made to give expression to incredible power, incredible love, incredible creation and generosity. It feels right. It feels good. And if we aren't careful, even in our giving, we can use ourselves up, right? And that's not the idea either. The true nature of female being, and what I believe what creation desires for female being on its own behalf for the good of creation, is that no, we don't use ourselves up in this life as an instrument of womankind. We care for what is here. We care for what we're capable of bringing through, and we cycle it back into ourselves so that we remain full at the same time that we are generous, that we really start to understand and sense into what it actually feels like to not be used, to not use ourselves, to be full to overflowing, to be balanced, to be sustained, to be contained and focused and held and nourished, and from that place to do all that we are here to do. One of the things, one of the ways that my Qigong teacher taught me about it is that in consolidating energy, what we do is we raise the energy, we lift it up, so it's like, you get in touch with that feeling of, all the creative feeling, all of the, I want to make dinner, I want to love my partner, I want to make love, I want to create this new business, I want to, I want to go out dancing, you let that energy rise, that inspiration, that and you let it go back to rest. Letting energy, can we allow inspiration? Can we allow love? Can we allow generosity to open up inside of us as an energy, as a reality? And then ask nothing of it. Just say, oh great, there it is, my generosity. Oh great, there it is, my Shakti. Oh great, there it is, all my capacity. And just for at least some of the time, let that be enough. It is enough that it's alive inside of us. And in that, and we don't ask it to go out. We don't then take that energy and go do the groceries and make soup and clean the house and, launch our next project, or, we don't use the energy for anything. We let it settle back in and saturate into our being. Part of consolidation as a deep feminine power cultivation practice is saturation. Actually valuing becoming saturated, becoming full to the point of fullness, right? As valid as being generous and giving, as valid as creating, as valid as being seen, as valid as being in relationship. That coming to a saturation and letting ourselves drink deeply of our own energy often is a necessity. It is the twin. It is the reciprocity. It is the balance of our generosity. And it is how we will not be used up by this life in the way that a lot of us are. How do you know you're being used up? Well, are you exhausted? That's a pretty clear sign. Are you confused a lot of the time? Are you anxious? Anxious is a depletion. Anxiety appears as an excess because it's an excess of energy, it's an excess of worry, it's an excess of thinking, but what it's based on is a depletion. It's based on a feeling that you don't have what you need when you need it, that the resource that you need in order to face life, what you really need to be full of in order to face what you don't know what's coming, but you know that life is still going to move. When that becomes depleted, anxiety starts to rise. in excess. So if you look in your life and you see excess, you see an excess of anger, you see an excess of anxiety, you see an excess of expression, right? An excess of action. You're actually probably dealing with a depletion underneath of that. All of that is compensatory, right? So those are a few signs that you're using up, that you're letting life use you up, that you are using yourself up. In the, how it relates to the course and the practices I chose for the course, these practices, these principles, discernment, magnetism, and self-authority, are principles that insist that we consolidate ourselves. They are the antidote to the overextension, the overgiving, and the constant emphasis on doing and becoming. And in that, our energy can start to simplify, focus, and consolidate so that enough of it is staying with us and we're listening. Like, too much of the time, we aren't even listening anymore. And that's up to us. But so back to the 3 practices. Discernment. How does discernment consolidate your energy? Well, it consolidates your energy if you befriend your sacred no. So discernment is very much about the no. It's very much about using the no, using the I'm not available, this is not for me, no, I will not, no, to close all the doors that shouldn't be open, all the leaks, all the places where, yeah, it's okay, or I feel like I should, or but they really want me to, and just to say no. And to, in that, understand that that is not a shutting down, that is not a cutting off from life. That is a gathering of your energy back to yourself. So when you say no, what happens is, if you allow it, your energy comes back to yourself and rests here. It's not going that direction. You're not going to experience that, engage in whatever it was, choose that, go do that. You're going to let your energy come back here. And what will happen there then is that the priorities, the true yeses, what actually is both what you love and what you're capable of doing becomes clear. And then you start to move with that. But you have to befriend the no. And I really encourage you to. And befriend it as not a rejection of life, not as a rejection of opportunity, but as a turning toward yourself. And to let your no be informed by whether or not something feels like it will be in balance with you. It's not about shoulds here anymore. We are like way beyond that at this point. The world is asking for a lot from all of us. And we're asking for a lot from ourselves because we really want to be a good influence in this bewildered world, right? But the no will help you get, there's a golden path for you. And on that golden path, your generosity will be met with reciprocity. You will be nourished at the same time that you walk your destiny. And you will be nourished even as you face hardship. But the way to find that golden path is through discernment. And discernment comes from the no. So I encourage you to explore your sacred no and to watch what happens to your energy when you say no, to let it come back into you. And to wait there for what is a true yes. And then you can give your full self to it. Right? So that's why discernment, there's consolidation inside of discernment. There's consolidation inside of magnetism for sure. So magnetism is making the choice to just, no matter what's happening, no matter what you're trying to create, what you're trying to handle, what life is asking, you just say, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to stop moving out from myself. I'm going to release my grip on things and I'm going to come home. I am going to turn the polarity and become receptive to myself, gather myself back to myself, and just stop all the doing. I will choose for this moment or this day or whatever that it's enough. I am enough. This is enough. And I need myself back to myself. That's magnetism. And our world is on the wheel. It gets going and keeps going, and it has a lot of false urgency. There are a lot of false urgencies in our minds, in our worlds, things that we've decided are urgent that just actually aren't, but they are convincing. The only way to break that cycle is to stop it energetically, to come home, to say, no, that's enough for now. I've given enough. Enough has moved out from me. I've managed enough. I've given enough. And now I am going to soften. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to sink down. And I'm going to become receptive. To become receptive and absorptive so that you can be nourished inside of all things. Magnetism, again, is a choice towards consolidation rather than dispersion. Self-authority, well, when you let yourself know what you know, and you let yourself know that from a deeper place than your mind and a deeper place than your opinion, then the endless depletions of self-doubt can stop. Because you're not coming from a place that's questionable. You're coming from true self-authority, true knowing, a place that you can trust. And so all the energy that we lose, that we leak out when we make decisions, then question them, or spend days and hours and months agonizing over decisions, or what's right and what's wrong, what's true, what we see or we don't see, what we know, all of that. If you cultivate self-authority that lives inside of you that is not from the mind, that is from this deep, deep feminine knowing inside of you that has your well-being at heart and always knows what's right, what's true, what's going on, that can really hold you, then self-doubt starts to fall away, and all of the energy that takes up and disperses starts to become available for your knowing. All right, you know that, you see that, this is your authority, and now you have the energy to move with it cleanly because it's free of doubt. This is not an opinion that can be, or your best guess. This is you moving from deep inside towards what you know to be true, towards what your inner knowing shows you. So all of this is to say that I really care about you. And I have, definitely walked the walk of almost using myself up completely in this life. And I have come to deeply believe that is not, there is no natural law in that. I don't care about karma. I don't care what the overculture says. I don't care what we think, what we've been trained to think, or anything. I do not believe at all that we are meant to be used up, but most of us are being used up by our lives. And what I want to say to that is, there are deep feminine practices and principles and ways of being that can change that from the inside out. And to me, they're crucial. Learning practices and ways of being that are informed by the female body, that are from deep feminine wisdom streams, that's the place to understand how it is that we can live as women in all that we are and actually thrive as the gardens that we are. But what I want to say about it is that I know shit happens. I know there are huge things happening in our lives, and that it's like, oh my God, are you raising a child? Are you just living in this world? I mean, I know that it's not, what I'm not saying is it's not that the world isn't asking a ton. It is. And it will continue to. We don't have to change the way that the world is. We don't have to make these radical changes in how life is unfolding. It's very simple, potent changes and shifts that we make in the way that we move through it and with it that determine whether or not we're being used up by it. I hope that makes sense. This isn't some idea that we're going to change the world and, overnight you can make it so that your life has no challenges anymore and you're on top of it all at all. No. But when you turn toward the deep feminine, she is generative, just like the female being. Women are generative, powerful beings by our nature, right? So the deep feminine as a reality is generative more than you can imagine. You turn toward her and just this much, and her response is huge and generous. What I'm saying is there are simple changes. There are tiny, easy choices that you can make now inside of the exact same life that you were living yesterday that will change how you are thriving inside of it. And I know that because I've had to do it in order to recover and in order to survive, right? When you're depleted, you can't change your whole world. You can't face all that. But what you can do is start to make these tiny changes. And, it's a lie to believe that I know that our world has been created in opposition, often in commodification and distortion of female being, of what supports and sustains and nourishes womankind. I know that. So do you. It's obvious. However, it would be a lie. It is a lie. It's part of the whole big lie that all of a sudden then we have no choice in the face of that. And we're just in this big machine that doesn't operate according to principles and rhythms that work for us. Our choices are more than we think. And I mean that because they can be the tiniest things. It can be the littlest things like just get off of Facebook. It can be the littlest things like just don't go out every Friday. It can be the littlest things like instead of doing this, I'm going to do this. And it can make a huge difference. Your energy coming back into you will have massive amplified consequences for your state of being, right? Benefits. So I implore you, don't let this life use you up. There's no need. And I know that false urgencies are very convincing. And I know that life can be really overwhelming. But, discernment, magnetism, self-authority, those are 3 ways, 3 places to focus your energy, to consider shifting into and refining in your being that you can do regardless of your circumstances. That's why I'm offering them to you. I want to give you things that are not dependent on the changing circumstances, right? The financial, the blah 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 blah, that it's always going to change, right? I want you to have true power and to be resourced in principles and inner strength and knowing that will not leave you and will be with you no matter what you face and will help you to stay nourished no matter what, so that you don't bleed out on your golden path. Walk your path to destiny in a good way, and we'll do it together, all of us, as we keep reminding each other what treasures we are and how important, how holy and sacred it is to steward the treasures that we are. Blessed be.